And the fact is, if you're Italian or German or African American or Latin American or Asian, you're more Jewish than you ever were because you're grafted in. Because what is more Jewish than following the Jewish Messiah? He's in you. You're a child of Israel. God did reveal that the gospel had to go to the Gentiles. Messiah said had to go to all peoples, and he didn't say anything about circumcision. He said, go make disciples of all nations. So they went to Jerusalem, then Samaria, Judea, Samaritans, then Antioch, then the world. So sometimes he even leads by what he doesn't say, and that tells you something there. See, God never said anything about the circumcision. I mean, nothing about saying you have to be in the New Testament, in the New Covenant. He actually says you don't have to. See, here's an issue. If God doesn't dwell on something, and he doesn't dwell on something in the New Testament, New Covenant scriptures, then you don't dwell on it either. Very simple. Even if you got points, even if you're right about something, if God's not dwelling on it in our salvation, you don't dwell on it. If he doesn't consider it crucial or the main thing, you don't either. That kind of just puts all those things aside, arguing over the Sabbath, arguing over it. Don't argue. Do what you want, but don't argue over it. But the cool thing is they came to the right decision. There's nothing saying an angel came and said, here, this is the right decision. Or there was supernatural, or there was even a prophecy. Nothing. We don't know about anything. They just came to it. So what if they didn't? Well, the answer is they had to, because God was going to make sure they did. God works through the natural, the supernatural, and the natural. He's not going to let his plan fall apart because we're flaking out. He guided them. He knew every detail. He knew every atom in their being at that meeting, and he was going to make sure everything was going to guide to that decision. See, sometimes it looks in your life that things are hanging by a thread, but that thread in God is an iron thread. It might look like a last thing, but it's going to go. If you're in God, it's going to go that way, or a golden thread that cannot be broken. It might be very thin. It might say, oh man, everything is hanging on this thing, but it's God's thread. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, God brings things about, whether it's by the first minute or the last minute. He has a way of doing that. Usually it's the last minute so he can build your faith, because the first minute doesn't build your faith. The last minute does. Or whether it's by victory by many or by few, whether it's with the odds or totally against the odds, it doesn't matter to God. It's the same thread. When I went to India on a mission, there was death all around us. And I've been to many places, but nothing was as dangerous as that. We were pursued, and we had it. And when we looked later on the film, there's at least 200 people pursuing, trying to get to me. And at every moment, it could have ended. But God kept giving this word that, do not fear, my right hand will hold you, and nothing will happen. But it looked like every second we were so close in the natural. It's like you're staring down a lion. A lion is breathing on you, and God says, don't worry about it. Well, you don't have to, because nothing's going to come there, but it doesn't always look like it. He knows your frame. He knows everything about you. As long as you seek him, he'll guide you. Amen. They end up doing the right thing. Why? Because they had the right theology? No, because they loved God. They were open to God. They were open, Lord, what is your will? They were surrendered. Not what we think, what do you think? If you love God, you follow him, you're surrendered to his will, your will first, you're going to get there. The Magi didn't know God. They were off the wall. They were astrologers. They were into the occult. But that was all they knew. But their hearts were seeking God. So he made sure, because their hearts were seeking God, even though they had no knowledge of very little knowledge of what the right thing was, they got right to the exact spot in Bethlehem. That's how it is with God. If you're following him, if you're truly seeking him, your heart is right to seek him more, you're going to get there. Even if you don't understand everything else, you're going to get there. It's amazing, because today we're living like in the opposite of this, or actually the kind of ceiling of this. Because back then it was like, now the big thing was the gospel to go from the Jewish people to the world, to the Gentile. But now we're at the time where the gospel is coming back to Israel, coming back to the Jewish people, coming back to its roots. The church is coming more and more back to its roots, the true people of God. So it's actually the opposite now. Now Jewish people are coming in. It's funny because, today, well, actually back then, they would be asking, if they said, I'm a Gentile, They'd say, and you're a follower of Jesus? Because this is a Jewish thing. And yet, today it's really the opposite. If you're Jewish, you say you're Jewish, and I believe in Jesus. You believe in Jesus? Well, so you're a converted Jew. Well, yeah, but I didn't convert from being Jewish. I converted from being in sin. It's like saying I'm Italian and I converted from being Italian. But people don't do that. If you're Italian, they don't say, oh, you're a converted Italian. So that's kind of weird. It's I didn't convert from that, or okay, you're a completed Jew. It's like I got to come up with some way to figure this thing out. Back then, it was the opposite. It was that, and if you weren't Jewish, they'd say, well, how could you be this? Well, God is now opening the door, going back. The thing is, it's not only for me that I can say to somebody, I said, not only I'm still Jewish, I'm more Jewish than I ever was. Back before I had Jesus, Yeshua, I was not nearly as Jewish as I am now. And the fact is, if you're Italian or German or African American or Latin American or Asian, you're more Jewish than you ever were because you're grafted in. Because what is more Jewish than following the Jewish Messiah? He's in you. You're a child of Israel. Well, some will say, now you're under the new covenant. You should eat ham. Come on. You're not under the law. Come on. Yes, I am free to eat ham, but do not put me under the law of ham. The fact is, we are free. It is time for well, let me tell you, I didn't plan this. Probably shouldn't, but I don't know. I'm like, stories told of a Jewish man in the Middle Ages, and he comes in and to accept Jesus, and the church says to him, okay, they sprinkle water on him, okay, you're not a Jew anymore, you're a Christian, So they say, okay, here it is, and on Fridays you don't eat meat anymore, you eat fish. So they're all eating fish, and they smell this filet mignon coming from Marty's house. And they said, what's going on? What's going on? Remember, you don't eat, you're a Christian now, you don't eat steak. And by the way, this is not in the Bible, but you don't eat steak on Friday. Fridays, next week, it's again, they're smelling it, it's filet mignon. He said, what are you doing? How can you eat this? They said, oh, I didn't know. I said, well, they said, no, it's not. They said, it's a steak. I said, no, it's not. It's a fish. Said, what do you mean? He said, I took the fish, I sprinkled water. I said, you're not a fish. You're not a fish. You're not a steak anymore. You're a fish. Okay. It's not in the Bible. But that's the point. Change that. It is time now. God is bringing back what he did back then. We're like in the other side of it. He's bringing back the other branches, coming back into the olive tree. That's what's happening. So it's time, now we're on the reverse to receive back. The church is turning back towards its roots. The true church is turning back. They're all over the world. The Israel and the Jewish people have never been and the Christians and Israel have never been as joined together as they are this day. To this day. From the book of Acts, that's the first time. When the two comes together, what will it be, says Paul? It will be life from the dead. It will be resurrection. It will be blessings, and Messiah will come.
Is it possible that behind the events transforming our nation and your life, New York Times bestselling author Jonathan Cahn reveals the stunning mystery and what it has to do with your life? What does the future hold? The Josiah Manifesto, the ancient mystery and guide for the end times. The book you can't afford not to read. Available wherever books are sold.